For Advent this year, so today's the first Sunday of Advent, I won't strictly be preaching on the gospel or passage or readings that we are given for each Sunday, but rather through these 4 Sundays of Advent, preaching perhaps what could be called the Kerygma. It's our fancy Greek word that means the proclamation of the good news of the Lord, right? Especially as Christians, right, in Jesus Christ. So I'm going to frame it in terms of 4 questions, so one for each of the Sundays. If you've heard this framework before, it's because I'm borrowing it without any shame at all from another who developed the framework. So I'm just using his framework and preaching on it. Cool. So 4 questions. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why is the world so obviously not how it's supposed to be? Or number 2 could also be said, what happened? Number 3, what, if anything, has God or will God do about it? Do about, right, number 2. Number 4, what should our response be to number 3? Right, because we're Christians, we already have a sense of, like, did God do something about it? I think I already kind of have a sense of that, right? Like, I doubt that I'm going to say much that's entirely new in that regard, where, like, I think Jesus has got to be part of the answer. Just say Jesus, always a good answer. So, number 4, right, is what should our response be to Jesus, to what God has done? Okay, so that'll be these 4 Sundays of Advent. So, why is there something rather than nothing? The biblical answer. So, what do I believe? What do we believe? The biblical answer is God, who is love, created everything out of nothing, and He did it freely and without any effort. So let's like break that down. God, we've already said a good amount, just in saying God. Right? God created everything out of nothing. Right? So God, against the other religious ideas, especially in the ancient world, but alive in ours today, against the philosophies that would say something very different, there is one God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and this God created everything, and He did it out of nothing. There was no pre-existing stuff that God used. Right? So there's a whole bunch of philosophies that would say, or religious beliefs that would say, that the order that we find in the world is because God, or the gods, took the chaos, which is primordial, and fashioned it into the world that we know. Right? And Christians say, Judeo-Christian tradition says, no, there was nothing, and God made everything. Right? And those are technical words. No thing, there was nothing. God is not a thing. He is the ground of all existence. He is not one thing among many. So God created everything out of nothing. Right? Nor, as modern people might be inclined to say, nor is the question irrelevant or begging the question, right, as though there are those who might say, the question, why is there something rather than nothing, is meaningless because there is something. So what difference does it make, right? It's a meaningless question. Or who might propose that the answer ultimately is entirely unobtainable because you just can't get back far enough. Or there's just an infinite cycle or amount of time or something, right? The Christian says, no, out of nothing, God created everything that is. Okay, and He did it freely. Yes, God created with a sovereign freedom, which we can only begin to grasp like a fraction of in our freedom. Right, the kind of freedom that God enjoys, in some ways, is foreign to us. It isn't, because we're made in His image and likeness. But in some ways it is, right? Because our desires and our will, right, so our capacity to choose, is shaped by a million billion things in ourselves, our personality, our family, our culture, a bunch of things. For God, His will is shaped by Him. Right? He has a freedom which we can only begin to sort of get like the smallest taste of. that kind of freedom that God enjoys. It also means, freely, also means that God was under no compulsion to create, nor did he create out of some need. Right? So God wasn't needy and created. God wasn't existing in himself before the beginning of time and all of creation, so to speak, and like got lonely and sort of bored and wanted to share this with a bunch of people and so created us for that. No. God wasn't bored or lonely. That's what we might think of ourselves if we existed from all eternity and we're alone, right? We might be like, I think we'd be kind of bored and lonely. Let's create some stuff to play with and enjoy the company of and whatnot, right? But no, God didn't create out of a need, right? Which to us is like, it's barely comprehensible. Because we're just like a walking need, right? Like try, don't try, right? But just imagine trying, like, don't eat for 2 days, right? Like we're a walking need. God is not. He created it freely, under no compulsion, and not out of any need. And he did it without effort. He didn't take something out of God to create. The way that for us, for like effort, whether physical or mental or whatever, like takes effort. Like it takes energy and then we have less of it. Right? Like for God, it didn't take something out of him to create. He created everything out of nothing. And he did it without any effort whatsoever. Right? Like effortless. And it doesn't mean without thought or intention or knowing what he's doing. Like, no, not the effortlessness of just like, I don't care. No. But the effortlessness of God is unlimited, and it doesn't take effort to do things. Okay? So he did it without effort. And when we read in the book of Genesis, the seventh day, God rested. This is not for God. This is not a day of God is tired and wants to rest from all the work that he has done because he's tuckered out. Like the Lord does not get tuckered out. He rests so as to teach us how to live. He rests so that we might learn that rest is an essential part of being made in his image and likeness, an essential part of the kind of creature that he's made us to be. Okay. So the biblical answer. God, who is love, created everything out of nothing, freely and without effort. And the highlight, the pinnacle of his creation is you. The person he loves the most of all. You. Not y'all. Not us. You. I think it's true, and now we're deviating from clearly what we believe as Christians into Father Scott's theological speculation. So I just want to be clear. I think it is true that if you personally, were the only human person God ever made and will ever make, I think he would do it all again. It's only speculation because that's not, in fact, what happened, obviously. But I think he would do it. He would create everything, set it all in motion, continue to guide the course of creation, send his son into the world to take on our humanity. He would do the whole thing for you. He, in fact, loves you most of all. I like math. I use a little bit of it in my work, addition and subtraction and stuff, right? Not a lot. But one of the things that I do remember clearly from taking a bunch of it is infinity is really, really weird. It's really bizarre how infinity works. And in fact, you can take infinity and divide it by 8 billion, and you still have infinity. Or 8 billion, or however many more people there have been throughout all of history, right? All the history of humanity. And you still have infinity. Because God, who is love, has an infinite, is love, right? So his love is infinite. And you can divide infinity by 8 billion, and you still have infinity. Because infinity is really, really weird, right? It's kind of bizarre. So God, in fact, loves you the most. It's not just a thing that we can sort of say and sounds pious but isn't ultimately true. Like, no. Very, very true. He loves you the most. And in addressing the questions, right, we'll get more into, like, what does that mean? But I think fundamentally what it means is creation is ordered to human flourishing. He made everything that is, not everybody, right? But everything that is for you. He made it for you, right? Because he loves you most of all. And there's something in there that just says, like, our hearts need to do what the Lord did on the seventh day and just rest with, he made it all for me. He made it all for you. Out of nothing. God, who has revealed himself to be a trinity of persons, one God, three persons, this trinity of love, who needed nothing at all, and continues to need nothing at all, right? Wants, has great desires for you and I, absolutely, but is in no need of it in the way that we are in need of things. God, out of nothing, chose to create everything, to imbue it with his order, with his intelligibility, to imbue creation with his love, and he did all of it. Right? He did it with great freedom, he did it without effort, and he did all of it because he loves you most of all.